Where can I find a manager? Maybe you know someone. Give me a good one. There are no good ones, say entrepreneurs and managers. Can I work in sales if I am an introvert? Ask managers and freelancers when they feel that money and growth can be found in sales, but something holds them back from working in this field. In this video, I will provide facts, examples from my own experience, and at the end, I will share an action algorithm on how to determine who is suitable for sales, as well as how to train and hire. Just in case, I should note that sales are an unnatural action. That is, if we talk to customers the way we talk in everyday life, there is a risk that only our friends will buy from us. The exception is if there is a natural skill to sell to everyone as if they were friends. If this skill is lacking, then etiquette, politeness, and social rules sometimes prevent us from talking to a client as if they were a friend. This requires courage. From my experience working with sales departments, I noticed that motivation has a greater impact on results than a person's psychotype. And the best salesperson, according to the Guinness World Records, Joe Girard, is an example of this. He went into sales because he had no other way to feed his family. To avoid unnecessary details and dry facts, I will tell you a story about introverted and extroverted managers from my business experience. I will also talk about examples of hiring and adaptation when I worked as a consultant for other businesses. I will share what we did with introverts and extroverts. I once had my own business. I was involved in the integration of GPS monitoring systems for transportation, and I had 5 managers. Let me tell you a story about 3 of them with different, so to speak, psychotypes. One day, Vitali, a student from the Faculty of Telecommunications, joined my work and behaved very modestly. He started working as a technical specialist, always quietly and silently. He did his job very well, and he had a desire to grow. So from time to time, he started asking me, "What else can I do?" I replied, "You can go into sales." But this did not motivate him to take such a step, and he continued to work as a technical specialist. Then he got a girlfriend, and he realized that he wanted to get married. Thus, the problem of "I am an introvert and I am not a salesperson" somehow disappeared. I started taking Vitali to participate in tenders as well as to meetings with large companies, where we talked with commercial and financial directors. Over time, I trusted him more and more and delegated sales to him, and he kept learning, negotiating, and selling. His strength was in his engineering mindset. Every time before doing something, he managed to think everything through carefully, as if he were playing chess. Then he wanted to buy a car for himself and suggested making a technical improvement. Vitali independently integrated the accounting system and the GPS monitoring system so that it would automatically invoice the client, allowing him to focus solely on sales. Later, he eventually bought a car. Who would have thought that a modest, introverted student was capable of this? He himself couldn't imagine it. But life, circumstances, and inner desires sometimes push us towards change. There was also another manager in the team, Serhi, who was something in between an introvert and an extrovert. He preferred account management and technical setup. No matter how much I tried to convince him, he focused specifically on client support to ensure they stayed with us. The third manager, Maxim, did not respond to the job posting, but came to my office on his own. A vibrant extrovert, he made the most sales and helped the company reach a new level of clients and contracts. I was very pleased because he didn't need to be taught, which is every entrepreneur's dream. However, he was headhunted by one of the largest companies in the country, and together they created their own GPS monitoring department. Yes, that was my screw-up because I didn't really understand how to motivate an employee at that time. So, the first manager, Vitali, worked for 7 years, the second manager, Serhi, for 9 years, and the third manager, Maxim the extrovert, for 1 year. But during this time, Maxim sold almost 3 times more than Serhi and Vitali did together in 3 years. Everything aligned for Maxim, both motivation and an extroverted nature. But after working in a large holding company, he left and became an IT specialist. When I asked why this happened, it turned out that he had simply burned out and was exhausted from working in sales. And the only one who didn't burn out and continued to grow was Vitaly, because he developed gradually. Of course, for me as an entrepreneur, it was more profitable to work with Maxim in the short term. So here is a piece of advice for you. Learn to work and adapt each manager individually. Finding bright and motivated extroverts is a challenging task, and such a cool, sharp salesperson may not always want to work for you long term. Therefore, I advise working at a level where you can take on people who are slightly better than you, or at least like you, if possible. Otherwise, people might drag you down instead of lifting you up. To ensure that employees worked long term, I held weekly individual meetings with each of them and engaged in sports activities together, but I did not cross the line between business and friendship. This helped to establish an emotional connection while simultaneously focusing on work. This is how I learned to perform HR functions. When entrepreneurs started approaching me to help them build a sales department, the question arose about which managers were better to hire. We did it very simply. We created a test task for managers that corresponds to reality. But before that, we didn't just ask if they agreed to do it. We sold them the idea. We conveyed the value of why it would be important and interesting for managers to complete this task, even if they do not end up working with us. Yes, we increased the number of completed tasks to select the right managers. In other words, we did not engage in the psychological qualification of managers, but created a hiring funnel. And in order for an employee to have motivation and skills, their motives, desires, and the state in which the manager is were researched and identified before hiring. And then a system was individually developed for each person to ensure they worked as long as possible. I also had experience creating a uniform system of motivation and training for everyone. This was suitable for large companies where the sales department has more than 100 managers. But the employee turnover in such a company was sometimes higher than in small companies, where individual conditions were tailored for each manager. Therefore, it depends more on you, your goals, and strategies. That is, knowing why you will succeed, rather than just saying something like, I want X10. Of course, in the B2B sector, a manager reveals their potential after 6 months of work, so it is desirable for them to work for at least 2 years. A sales system template where everyone works the same way, like soldiers, can lead to manager burnout when they become dissatisfied and quit. From the system's perspective, soldiers are easier to replace than snipers or Spartans because there are more soldiers. And it turns out that we know how to sell, we know how to hire, but managers keep quitting and we keep asking ourselves where to find good ones. Are you not going in such a circle? I will also say that an experienced manager and negotiation specialist, of course, works for themselves. So, it is not a fact that such specialists will want to work for you. Therefore, you need to learn to work with what you have and develop what you have. Therefore, when asked whether to hire an introvert or an extrovert, I recommend the following course of action. First, during the interview, feel how comfortable the person is, how communicative they are, and whether you would like to talk to them just for the sake of it. Second, identify those who are ready to complete the test task. To do this, it is necessary to convey the value of this task, make it interesting, and ensure that the manager feels they are already developing while performing the task. At this stage, you should not have anyone who lacks basic communication skills. At the third stage, after completing the task, identify those who not only say they can learn, but show that they truly can learn. Often this stage is overlooked, and it turns out that teaching some people takes a lot of time or is impossible. Fourth, develop an individual motivation system for each person if the company is small and the product is complex, or develop one system for everyone. Fifth, conduct a sales skills audit and find out which techniques the manager knows and which ones they do not. What sales rules is he familiar with? What books has he read? Considering this, show the manager how to go through the adaptation training program so that he doesn't learn what he already knows, but only what will really help him move to the next level. Sixth, sometimes during training, there is resistance when a consultant comes, provides regulations, shows how everything should work, and the manager does not comply. To avoid such resistance, it is necessary to show live calls and conduct live sales simulations. Then the manager does not have questions about which technique works and which does not. And I advise doing such performances more often because this is not theory, but something that is simply impossible to argue with. Thus, the manager starts to listen and develops a desire to learn. Of course, this is just the basics and there are many nuances. I talked about them in the following videos, so don't forget to subscribe and like. To increase sales, you need to know what obstacles each manager faces. However, sometimes the manager won't tell you this personally, so an outside perspective is needed. Sometimes a consultant is brought in to help identify this and create individual plans for specific managers. So, if you have a sales department and you think it wouldn't hurt to get an outside perspective, write to me in private on Telegram or Instagram with the word test. I will conduct an audit for you on the remaining specified points, perform a live simulation, and help resolve issues within your sales department. Links to my social media are in the description below the video.